Joining me now is the independent senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good to be with you.
Well, we appreciate your being here on a busy Sunday morning. I want to start with your reaction to that State Department report and what you just heard from the Secretary of State who defended the report, the fact that there was no definitive conclusion drawn. He also said he has not seen a definitive plan from Israel to go into Rafah without mitigating civilian casualties. What was your takeaway, Senator?
Well, Chris and I have a lot of respect for Tony Blinken. He has an impossibly difficult job. But the reality is I think any objective observer knows Israel has broken international law. It has broken American law. And in my view, Israel should not be receiving another nickel in U.S. military aid. Look, the facts are quite clear. Hamas is a terrible, disgusting terrorist organization that began this war. But what Israel has done over the last 7 months is not just gone to war against Hamas, it has gone to war against the entire Palestinian people, and the results have been absolutely catastrophic. I mean, Kristen, we're talking about not just 35,000 Palestinians dead and 77,000 wounded, 2/3 of whom are women and children. That is not the way you conduct a war in a civilized society to the degree that war is civilized. We're talking about 60% of the housing in Gaza having been destroyed, the civilian infrastructure, that's water, that is raw sewage now running out into the streets, no electricity. You are talking about a systematic destruction of the healthcare system there. Every university in Gaza has been bombed. And right now, most frighteningly, according to the humanitarian organizations, we are looking at the likelihood of hundreds of thousands of children facing starvation. The Foreign Assistance Act is very, very clear, 6201, the provision. Any entity, any state, any country that blocks U.S. humanitarian aid is in violation of law and should not continue to receive military aid from the United States. That is precisely what Israel has done.
Senator, let me just press you a bit, because I hear you saying you believe Israel shouldn't receive another cent, and yet 26 House Democrats wrote a letter to the White House saying they are, quote, deeply concerned about the message the administration is sending to Hamas and other Iranian-backed terrorist proxies. Does withholding weapons to Israel run the risk of prolonging this war and weakening Israel's hand against Hamas?
No, well, I understand. Look, every Republican, as I understand it, wants to give huge amounts of money to Israel. My guess is that many Republicans want Israel to go into Rafah despite the incredible humanitarian destruction that will cause. And there are Democrats who also feel that way. But this is what I will tell you, Kristen. That is not what the American people feel. Poll after poll suggests that the American people want an immediate ceasefire. They want massive humanitarian aid to get in. The people of our country do not want to be complicit in the starvation of hundreds of thousands of children. And by the way, when we talk about the international community, we are increasingly isolated in terms of our support for Israel, who is becoming a pariah nation.
But, Senator, I mean, is there a non-military way to get rid of Hamas, given the threat that they pose, given that they say their very goal is to destroy Israel's existence?
You're right. You're absolutely right. Look, Hamas that is exactly right. That is their goal. It is difficult. I don't want to minimize this. So the goal is to defeat Hamas, but not to destroy or cause the enormous amount of destruction that we're now seeing in Gaza. And I hope that the future for the Palestinian people is a new generation of Palestinian leaders who focus on allowing the people to have a state of their own. We've got to support a two-state solution, improving the economy, rebuilding the economy. That's the long-term goal.
Senator, I have to ask you about some comments you made this week saying that the Middle East, the Israel-Hamas war, could be Biden's Vietnam, arguing politically speaking, this could cost him the election. In the wake of Biden's new warning to Israel, do you stand by those comments, or do you think that the landscape has now changed?
Well, I certainly support the president saying that it is absurd to provide Israel with 2,000-pound bombs, which could level an entire square block in the midst of Rafah, which is an incredibly densely populated area. So the president is clearly right. What I worry about is that this war in Gaza right now is not only strongly opposed by young people, but a whole lot of people in the Democratic base.
So you still think this could be his Vietnam? Do you still think this could be his Vietnam?
Well, I am strongly supporting the president because on many domestic issues, he's done an excellent job. But I think there are a lot of people in the Democratic base who are concerned about what his support for Israel in this war.
Senator, very quickly, you have talked about and you announced this week that you are running for re-election. Of course, this comes. You are 82 years old. I don't have to tell you this, but age is obviously a big issue in the presidential election. Are you concerned that age could be a political liability for you?
Well, look, I think age is a factor, experience is a factor, accomplishment is a factor, and most importantly, a factor in politics is what do you believe in? And I would hope that the people of Vermont and the people of the United States look at candidates in their totality. But I should also tell you, I would not have announced re-election, my intention to seek re-election, unless I felt pretty good. With the exception of a week off for COVID, I've not missed a day of work in the last 3 years. So I'm feeling pretty good.
That is what your staff says, that you never take a vacation. We're almost out of time. Let me try one more time. Just yes or no. Do you still think that the Israel-Hamas war runs the risk of potentially being Biden's Vietnam?
I think there are a lot of people are very disappointed. Well, it's hurting him politically. Yes, of course it is.
Okay. There you have it. Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I really appreciate the conversation.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.